we have sought to understand the problem. And this is the problem. For years, our fellow citizens in the Kenya of the North have lived in mortal fear and dread of bandit attacks. For decades, our people in these areas have been killed, maimed, and dispossessed of their property by murderous gangs of bandits and rustlers. Many victims of this terrible crime against innocent civilians resulted in arming themselves to protect their loved ones and their property. Others were driven out of their homes to live in destitution in faraway hideouts. Nothing, fellow Kenyans, is more dehumanizing than dispossessing a human being and dislodging them from their home. In the past 100 days, I have deeply sought to understand the anatomy, pulse, and lifeline of this decades-old atrocity of banditry and rustling, which over time has metamorphosed into an elaborate criminal enterprise. I have come face to face with the unthinkable ruin left behind by cattle rustlers, the orphans, and the widows who have been consigned to utter destitution by these felonry anarchists. Banditry and livestock rustling have occasioned untold socioeconomic decay that has in turn worsened and deepened the marginalization of affected communities, as evidenced by the closure of schools, abandoned market centers, and deserted health facilities. Many individuals in the affected areas had long given up on the government. Thankfully, we are now slowly building and rebuilding public trust in the government and the security agencies who continue to keep crucial public spaces safe and secure from bandits, livestock rustlers, and hordes of other degenerates. There is some good news. And what is the good news? In the past 3 months, 60% of all livestock stolen across the 10 most affected counties, namely West Pokot, Laikipia, Meru, Turkana, Garissa, Samburu, Marsabit, Kitui, Elgeyo Marakwet, and Tana River, have been recovered. The only challenge is that they have been recovered in bits and pieces, because what these criminal gangs do is immediately they strike and steal the livestock. They divide it into small numbers and disappear in different directions. And that is why it is seldom that our security forces will be able to recover the stolen herd all at once. But I am glad to report that unlike in the past when recovery of stolen animals was minimal, we have been able to recover in bits and pieces approximately 60% of the stolen animals from the 10 most affected counties. And our security agencies are tracing the missing 40% of stolen livestock, even as we continue to monitor the meat supply chain across urban areas in the country to disrupt the existing criminal food chain. We have rolled out robust strategies to disrupt the proliferation of small arms through strategic and evidence-led disarmament. We are involving the local communities in protecting livestock and working on transparent, open, fair, and accountable hiring of National Police Reservists in livestock rustling and banditry hotspots. We have also reopened 15 schools that had been closed due to bandit attacks. It is possible, fellow Kenyans, to end this menace permanently. The government is investing in community-based intelligence, drone surveillance technology, modern personal protection equipment and kitting for our security personnel, and application of land and air assets to neuter bandits and rustlers. To ensure success of this national endeavor, I have established a high-level counter-banditry land and air team, LAT, complete with a situation room at the ministry headquarters to oversight daily progress in this war. In the immediate, we must silence the guns in the north of our country. But in the short and long term, the government will roll out a Marshall Plan to open up this area with social and economic infrastructure projects such as water projects, road projects, hospitals, health facilities, and schools as the surest way of correcting historical developmental imbalances in our country. On behalf of a hurting nation, I pledge to oversee the complete and permanent end of banditry and livestock rustling in our country. The die is cast. So far, we have managed in the last 100 days to stir up and disrupt the banditry network. That explains why occasionally you will see some antics. And I want to assure the people of Kenya, neither the occasional antics nor the glorification that bandits are getting from a tiny minority of naysayers, neither will deter our resolve to eliminate them and the threat they pose to our country's search for peace and progress. Of course, we know that this being a problem that has spanned decades will not go away instantly. We are clear in our minds that this problem will be with us for a short while. We pray for the patience of the people of Kenya, the support, prayers, and moral solidarity as we dismantle, neutralize, and permanently disable this network of criminals that have caused untold suffering, the shedding of innocent blood, the suffering of populations, the dispossession and anguish in a large part of our country, actually approximately 66% of Kenya's landmass. Our resolve as a nation to eradicate this primitive and barbaric crime must remain consistent and focused and resolute. I take cue from President William Ruto that his administration will eradicate banditry and livestock rustling as a matter of course. And once more, I plead for the patience, patriotism, and the solidarity of the Kenyan people and all stakeholders as we wage a very consistent battle against bandits. And we want to make banditry and rustling part of our Kenyan history. And we want our children in the future to be reading how it was in the past. It is possible, we will do it, and I am going to lead from the front. Why am I convinced that we shall win this war in the long term? It is because, as the minister responsible, I have the support and guidance of the head of state and the commander-in-chief. I also have faith in the team at the ministry, which is working with me, including the PSs that you see behind me here today, but also the command, the rank and file of our security agencies. I am convinced that our security agencies, especially in the formed units, have the capacity to deliver the results that we require. The Kenyan public is in total solidarity with the victims of this horrendous crime. The combined energy of these support systems that I have enumerated will provide the tailwind that we require to permanently vanquish banditry and livestock rustling and eventually embarrass the tiny and patriotic minority among us who are still glorifying bandit attacks and their vain antics. We must all stand on one side as a nation to condemn and to diminish the ego of these criminals. With regard to citizen services, as well as immigration services, the delay in the issuance of the new Kenya passports, the e-passports, which had prevailed for the last 1 year, due to lack of passport booklets and the breakdown of the printer at the Directorate of Immigration, that delay now has been resolved.